Hello, everyone. Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. Hopefully, we are all there. Are we full screen, Miles? Going to be full screen. There we go. All right. So welcome, everyone. Another awesome day of FileMaker training. It's Friday. Very, very exciting. It's Friday. I'm sure half of you are cracking open some adult beverages. Very exciting. So I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv, where we create this great training every day at 1 o'clock Pacific time, Monday through Friday. Every day, it's at least an hour of content. People are like, you do a FileMaker an hour every day in a live stream? I'm like, yeah, we've been doing it since March of last year. So, so we're doing on Twitch, Discord, and YouTube. It's going great. We have a great group of people here, a really awesome group of people. We're going to cover a little bit of low-hanging fruit here, as we normally do at the beginning. So today is day 3 of the Wolfpack. It's really pretty nifty stuff. Next week, Nick Hunter back 1, 2, 3 days. I also received an email today saying that Jesse Barnum was attempting to be here. However, that being said, I do have the backup Jesse Barnum puppet. So on Thursday, on March 11th, we will be doing Jesse Day, whether it's him or his puppet. I don't care. I've never talked to a puppet for an hour, but I'm going to try. I will try if Jesse doesn't show up. And then we got Dead Bird Friday with samples, etc., stuff like that. Very exciting. So if you want to support the channel, this is very expensive. There's a lot of people here that are here. And so I wanted to shout out to everyone. Most everyone here has our training bundle. Once again, as a reminder, this is how you access our on-demand training. Why do we have on-demand training? Because I was watching a broadcast from earlier this week and looking at what I said, and I said something almost great, but not quite great enough. And what I want to say is that during the broadcast, I can't answer every question about FileMaker. However, somewhere in the video, I've answered just about every question on FileMaker somewhere else. It's just something that we don't have an hour to hour is not enough time to regurgitate that to everyone. So we're talking about add-ons today. We're talking about the Wolfpack today. If you have a question about script triggers or relationships or how to do a set field or what is a choose function or what is JSON or why is Kyle the way Kyle is, we have a video on all those topics. We do. And so what we'll do is you'll ask the question and we will tell you what video to watch, the pre-recorded video. All that video is in here. It's not much. It's an annual license. There's even a coupon code if you really want to save some bucks here. Send us an email to support@RC Consulting. So support, S-U-P-P-O-R-T @rcconsulting.com. If you spell it correct, we'll get the email and we can reply to you. But during the broadcast, if you ask us a question, we may not answer it in detail, but we'll give you the video so you can go find the answer. Now, really important, I want everyone to keep your pants in the on and upright position. I'm about to show you something super triple secret. Where's the super triple secret stuff? So this is the landing page for the Wolfpack. Okay, it is operational, right? So, but I would recommend that you watch the broadcast and then do this later. In fact, you might want to do this in another day. So what we have here is if you reload the page, by the way, we need to make a note, this animated GIF has to keep like looping. It'd be really great if it looped in the background. But it has, you can download it here and the download link is working and it will send you the Wolfpack 1.0, which we just kind of the build number 1 we finished about 20 minutes ago. Kristian finished it. There is a couple areas that need clarification in it that we need to add. So I would think by tonight or tomorrow you'll see version 2 and then version 3 and version whatever. So the same email will work. You don't have to go here every time. This will send you an email. So when you press on this, you have to pretend you're not a robot. So I'm going to do this for everyone so you understand how this works, because some of you are robots, right? I worry about you when you start talking about if I go to RC Mobile, it's one of my test email accounts. I say, are you a robot? By the way, if you ever want training on how to set this robot stuff up, we could do a topic on that, right? On a web page. It's kind of an interesting thing. So this, I'm not a robot. Hit submit, you're going to get an email, right? And so as we update things, that build, we'll keep putting the latest version up there for you. Kristian Olsen, are you there? Are you ready to carry us through day 3? Day 3.
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
As ready as you're going to be. Kristian has been stressing out a little bit because, he wants to make this really awesome. And then as you make a product and you get it in the market, it's like when we do in a starting point, promptly you'll have someone come in and say, oh, it doesn't do blah. And you swear you tested it, but it doesn't do it. Like, I remember one time we shipped a copy of Starting Point, and I had an engineer that we were working with, kind of like a remote guy, and he had decided to define a field in the database. He defines 4 fields. Those 4 fields were corrupted. I don't know how he managed to do it. So we had to, so someone goes, well, when we recover your file that says your file is damaged, you can't be used, your brand new file. Who downloads a brand new starter solution and runs it through the recover command and then reads the log? Apparently there are people who do that, right? And so we had to go and delete those fields. It's just embarrassing. So Kristian is in the, I'm launching a product that I'm slightly embarrassed, but it's looking pretty good stage. So everyone be therapeutic. Pat Kristian on the back. He needs a good pat. We love Kristian. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to switch control to Kristian.
Beautiful. And on the note of rushing things out, I do want to come back to just one kind of minor thing from yesterday. Where's my file at? Actually, we'll just open a fresh file. So if you are consumers of the Wolfpack, this won't actually be an issue because I took care of this on my end. But if you're a creator, like Jake or Kyle or Neil or Leland or someone out there, I forget if it started in FileMaker 18 or 19. But if you go up to File, Manage, Security, and we're going to add a little help section on this. But if you go over here to File Access, you either have to authorize the Wolfpack or easier yet, just uncheck that box right there. Otherwise, when it goes to open it to make the add-on package, it's not going to work. So that's just some of the stuff I've been kind of going through, as Richard said at the very end here, in trying to make. So I'm a little less prepared for today than I would have liked, but I've got some good stuff, everybody. And I thought, so today is just a reminder, is kind of, let's talk about the things I've learned through my own experience in making add-ons, and I want to share my, and kind of, if you will, the recipe I have for making these. This doesn't mean that this is the only way in which add-ons can be made, but I'm also going to share some of the experiences I've heard from some of the other engineers. What I thought would be fun today in diving into breaking down an add-on is to use slide tabs. And I'll be honest, I went through this last night. I made the slide tabs add-on months ago. I don't remember exactly when. And looking at it, it's almost kind of like a magic box to me now. I know what's going on there, but we're not going to get into as detailed as Nick does in some of this. This is exactly how it works. This is more generic. It's not going to be, this is how to make slide tabs. More so, here are the steps that I'm using over and over again on lots of add-ons. But I thought slide tabs would be a fun one. So the first thing that we're going to do is open up our Wolfpack, and we're going to go ahead and install slide tabs. So I've selected it. I'm going to install it. We're not going to get any error messages. We're going to go ahead and close that. And I've got a brand new blank FileMaker file here. Something that Richard had mentioned on Wednesday, and I think it was a good point. I tend to demo things in FMSP, but FMSP has a lot of stuff going on. And so I think sometimes when I just drag an object on top of a layout, it's a bit confusing. So let's start with just something totally blank here. Okay, so we're going to go into layout mode, and we're going to go ahead and add our add-on. So we're in the add-on pane. We're going to click the plus, and we're going to find slide tabs. Okay, we're going to choose it. And next, we're going to drag it on screen, the beauty of the add-on process. We're going to get that somewhere kind of in the middle of the screen. Doesn't really matter, but we'll get it kind of nice. Okay. And in the Wolfpack, it tells us how to configure it. Again, today's not so much about that, but I am going to go up here to script triggers. I'm going to go ahead and do the on layout enter, and I'm going to find our script, and I'm going to do our script parameter, just to get this working, and then we're going to kind of walk through kind of what's going on here. Okay. Perfect. So now I've got the add-on properly installed. It should work. Let's take a look. Looks like we are going to different things. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to look at my checklist. So if you're making your own add-on, the spot that the steps you're going to go through, first of all, is come up with an idea for an add-on. And one of the things that I like about Wolfpack here is this idea of actually dialing it way back, rather than having something really complicated like the virtual menus product that I'd originally released. Let's do something really simple like an accordion. Let's do something like the beautiful menus, and maybe get a little bit more complicated with something like slide tab. But just these complex layout objects, I think, are a great way to start. The next thing you want to do is you need to make your add-on work. So you can make a demo file kind of like what we have here, though. Obviously, I've installed this. Get your add-on just functional to the point where you can maybe install it or just even get the demo kind of working. And then you're going to want to boil it down. And let me show you what I mean by boiling it down. I'm going to open the Wolfpack again. And I'm going to export the add-on. Okay. And this add-on has been definitely boiled down. In fact, I have a couple versions of it. And in one of the last ones, I have, oh, excuse me, I don't want to export it. I want the actual add-on. Let me go back to Wolfpack. So we're going to open this up. And in Customize here, there's the actual add-on. So we're going to go and download this to the desktop. Okay. We're going to move this, and let's open that up. And there's a whole lot of nothing going on here. Let's look at the back end. There's even more nothing going on. There's no tables. There's no relationships. For those of you who were here for my how to make an add-on tutorial, you might have saw that I showed that you can actually remove pretty much the whole back end. Let's take a look at the scripts. Not that many scripts, okay? Let's take a look at the layouts. Not that many layouts. So here's what I mean in boiling it down. I only have the essential elements necessary to make this add-on work. Okay, and it didn't start like that, but I kind of, as I got everything working, I started removing it. So I have the installable add-on, and then somewhere in one of my folders, I have a demonstratable one, very similar to what we're seeing kind of over here. Okay, so let's start to walk through slide tabs to see what's going on, and then I want to kind of bring everybody through the 6 stages, or 6 stages or steps isn't really the right word, but the 6 elements, the 6 ingredients for me of making an add-on. Okay. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to start by opening up the scripts. Okay. And let's take a look at what's going on here. Now, I know many people in here have watched Nick do a number of presentations. So if you've ever actually seen Nick do his show how this works, these scripts might actually be look very familiar. In fact, this script, other than the fact that it has my name on it, is Nick's script. I don't think I've touched anything on it other than adding comments. I know Nick's not a big fan of comments in his scripts. And then we're going to come down here to this one. Again, also really basic scripts. Both of these are the exact same other than an animation.
By the way, Nick not doing comments in his scripts. I can beat him with a stick. So if necessary, we will do that. So yeah.
I just had to give a little jab. Obviously, I love Nick and I look up to him, but I'm really big. You know, all the people I coach with, Jake, if he's in there, he knows this. I really try to get into them this idea that have a template, have purposes at the top. The parameters are nice. This is something another engineer taught me, and I follow it religiously every time. I just got to poke Nick a little bit there. Though Nick's scripts are also, generally speaking, fairly short and concise and easy to follow. Without scripts here, without comments here, it's not too hard to see what's going on. But again, these two, there's nothing special. Okay. Then we get into this one, the on layout mode, enter, and things change slightly. First of all, we've got this set variable, and I could almost go find one of Nick's, but we're not going to necessarily compare this slide tab versus his. But this is where things start to get a little bit special. So we've got our variable that is doing something. And what's it doing? Okay, so we've got some text, and then we have this thing called stActive1. What is that? It's a custom function. We'll come back to that. Okay, we're going to close this. We're going to go down further, and we've got slide navigation. So it's calling one of our other Nick scripts with a parameter that is this right here. Now, I will tell you that one of my personal preferences is this calculation right here could simply go into the parameter there. This is an extra step. And why do I have the extra step? When I'm troubleshooting my scripts, I very much like to be able to open the data viewer and put it into the current tab and see this populate and what it says, so that when I have issues, I don't have to go into the parameter, take the calculation, and copy and paste it. I can just see it happen. So this is helpful to me when I know that things, could break at some point. Then down here we go, is empty st slide JSON. What the heck is that? It's another custom function. We'll come back to that. Okay. And then we've got perform on panel switch, our other script, with some sort of parameter. And what is that? st parameter 1-1. It's another custom function. We'll come back to that one as well. Okay, so let's jump over to our last script. So in our script here, now we've got something a bit more complicated. Button bar name. So now we've got like a bit of a bigger let statement going on, but mostly what we should see here is we have something, surprise, surprise, another st oddly named thing with some sort of parameter, and then another one. So you might start to notice that there's a lot of custom functions going on here, okay? And we're gonna get to those. And then down here we have this thing called initialize. This we're definitely going to be coming back to. I want you guys to take a special note of this. This is really important right here, okay? And this is why we're not going to break down exactly how slide taps works today. This is one. There's a couple parts in here that are quote unquote magic boxes. Moki, on Wednesday, I believe you said it was really difficult sitting and trying to keep that context the same between modules and layouts. Yes, it is. This is a big part of that. And I'm going to go through parts of it. Specifically, we're going to come back to this set variable right here. And we'll also come back to this set JSON. But basically, there is a more complicated thing going on here. It's derived from Nix, but it's been expanded on. And then we have basically a refresh object. Okay, so we've got 4 scripts, 2 of which there's been nothing changed on, and 2 of which there are a series of custom functions. Okay, so we're going to close this, and let's go look at the rest of the file. So we're going to go into layout mode, and we've got a button bar. Okay, and let's go ahead and ungroup this. Okay, and our button bar does stuff. Well, what does it do? It performs a script. It's Nix slide navigation. So again, if you've used this before in Launchpad or other solutions, this is exactly how it works, but this is a little bit different right here. st parameter 1.1 and some historical code that I left for myself, okay? So again, we're gonna get to these custom functions. I just want everyone to see kind of what's going on behind the scenes as we boil down to it. If we go to the next button, same script and a permutation to our parameter. Pay attention to these because if you want to use this, you don't have to understand how it works, but if you can follow the patterns, you can better leverage this for yourself. So we've got 1.1 on the main button bar on the first segment. On the second button, but the main button bar, we've got 1.2, okay? What do we think we've got on the third one? 1.3. And if you were here yesterday, you saw that making a 4th button, you call the same script, you add 1.4, make sure you name the button accordingly. This is consistent with how Nick has made this before, so hopefully this is something you're somewhat familiar with there. A big thing that drives this add-on is the name of the objects. It also looks like there's a hide condition on here. Let's take a quick look at that. Actually, I don't remember what it is. Or maybe there's only one on this one. Oh, that's right. There we go. It is the... I really like that Nick does this. He has things hide when they're in find mode. And then if there's no found count. Okay. And then let's go take a look at these buttons. And what do we have going on here? Oh, they're calling the same script with what looks like a similar parameter, but it's slightly different. st subslide parameter. But look at there. It's that same kind of pattern, 1.1. Just ignore all this stuff down there. Historical code for me. And then over here, we've got 1.2. Okay. Let's go to the second slide for a moment, just so you can see that there is some variation to this. So now we're on the second slide, and these are our sub-slides. So what does this button bar do? Oops, did I not go to the second slide? Oh, never mind. That's still the same one. So same thing over here. We've got 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So it doesn't matter if you're on the first or second slide, still kind of doing the same thing. No hide conditions on these. Now, the naming convention is slightly different here. On this one, if I can click on it. Come on. 2.1. Let's go back to the first slide. Click on this. And if I open up, because it's all grouped right now, you'll see the navigation bar itself is called 1.1. So here's where I differ from Nick a little bit, I believe, is I've got this 1.1. For the second slide, you'll notice there 2.1. So again, there's a logical pattern kind of happening behind the scene. You don't have to understand it as long as you can repeat what you see in front of you. I know that in my first couple years of working with FileMaker, Richard would ask me to do tasks that felt way outside of my skill set. And the way that I would do them is I'd go find something that worked somewhere that I didn't understand, but I could follow the patterns and repeat it elsewhere. So whether you're a very advanced engineer or an aspiring new one, if you can identify those patterns and follow them, they're going to be helpful for you in many, many different ways. The last thing I'll show you is there is a script trigger on here, and it has no parameter, just like Nix works. Trigger on panel switch. Similarly, our sub slide, that is why commenting helps. I agree, Megan. No parameter. Okay, so we've gone through all that. At any point, if anyone has any questions, by all means, shoot them out. But now I want to slightly dive into the custom functions, and then I'm going to kind of loop back around to what's going on. But let's go ahead and open up the custom functions in here. There's a lot. And I say there's a lot because this is a brand new file with nothing else in it, and there are 13 custom functions driving a single feature. It's a bit unusual. And you might notice too, depending on what your level of familiarity is with custom functions, some of these don't even have parameters. That might be odd. I actually use a number of custom functions like that, but let's take a look at, I think this is a simple one. Oh, let's go to one that's even simpler than that. No. Oh, they might all be a little complicated in here. That's okay. They're all a little bit more than I thought. But this one asks for a single parameter. And frankly, I'll tell you, in almost all these, panel is almost always going to be one. I have anticipations of slide tabs growing beyond where it's currently at. We can talk about some of the limitations there later. But let's take a look at a couple of the ones that are in here. You'll notice that one of these is called st-configure. And if we go back to where we installed this, on the script triggers, we've got st-configure as our optional script parameter. Okay. And let's go back and take a look at that. I guess I could do that in the other file. What is going on with st-configure? Doesn't look like a whole lot is going on with it. We're going to come back to that in a moment. st-configure and st-set-json, these are two of the most important things in this file right here. But what I have started to learn is when I mention you want to make something and then boil it down, boil it down, boil it down. For me, what has happened, and I first learned this with virtual tabs, is I might have a number of calculations happening. In this one, I don't have hide calculations on every button segment. I don't necessarily have conditional formatting. But if I did, the way that I normally do this outside of the add-on world is I might have a calculation, all those that is fairly similar, and I just go into it and I write the calculation. Maybe I need to reference some JSON. Maybe I need to reference something fairly basic. To learn with my add-ons is as they would evolve and change, this became a pinch point for me. And so I have taken all of the calculations that would take place on the various objects I have, and I make them custom functions. And what's nice about this is if I have 3 conditional format calculations or 6 or several hide calculations or script parameters, then I have a single place where I can go and I can manage all of it. This becomes the framework for my add-on. Single consolidated location that I can go and make things work. And you'll notice over here we have this thing called slide JSON, okay? Also with no parameters. This is one of the simple ones I wanted you to see. You don't have to know what's going on there, just notice that it's simple. But now let's go back over here to st active. So we've got st slide JSON. No one knows what that is. We go to st active, and if I'm not mistaken, there it is. I was like, it should be in here somewhere. It's referencing the other custom functions, okay? So again, rather than having a whole big script library, rather than lots of calculations on the layout, I try to put it all into the custom functions. And the custom functions call each other, and some of them are very simple. They might literally do one thing for me. For example, slide tabs, as the ST is abbreviated for, active, tells me my active slide panel. This tells me my active button. This tells me what slide I need to get, so on and so forth. So they start to tell me different things going on. Okay, so I want to pause for a moment. I want to go kind of to my checklist on how I do things. So we've got our add-on and we've boiled it down. The first thing that comes to mind is that I need to have some sort of configuration that takes place. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you've, again, built one of these the way that Nick does, in each and every module, you're going to need to have a set of scripts for that module. There is a benefit to this. It's easier to reverse engineer and follow what's going on. But for an add-on, you don't necessarily want to tell these end users, hey, every time you drag and drop, go make these scripts and go make these changes. What I have found is even the simple steps on the add-on can become a bit difficult. Additionally, how do you make your drag and drop know all these different places to point to? You don't. So you need to somehow identify a way that when you drag and drop your add-on, it can be configured. Now, some add-ons, Jake has one that he just sent me the other day, and it looks great. And Leland's latency one would be an example, where more or less you're going to drag and drop a button that opens a window that is a totally self-contained add-on. This is very similar to what Calvin demonstrated if you were there with his image cropping. All the add-on does is gives you the window to call, again, the self-contained mechanism. But these layout objects, you want to be able to drag and drop these into multiple layouts and multiple modules and make them work. And so you need a way of configuring them, okay? With the virtual portals that I showed you yesterday, that configuration comes from this script trigger, on record load, and a parameter. And what's nice about that is you now have this junction point. Every module can call the same script, but they can pass a slightly different piece of information. Accounts can say, I want this field, and here's my children records. Contacts can say, here's my field, and here's my related records. And then you can compile them at a single location. So you need some sort of way to configure them. If you go to slide tabs, I utilized what Nick already had, which is there's an on layout enter and an on mode enter. That means every time you come to this layout, every time you toggle layout or find mode or browse mode, these scripts get called. And every time they get called, I have the option to pass them useful information that is context specific. This is really important to get, that as you jump from module A or module 1 to module 2, you can pass different sets of information. And that's what stconfigure is. And in this case, I was able to boil stconfigure down to where it doesn't actually require the user to do anything. stconfigure does all the work for you. So it's our configurations. And let's take a look at what stconfigure even is. Okay. We're going to go over here to our, one of these is our functional model. I think it's this one. We're going to open up our data viewer. And oh, look at that. I got lots of stuff in here. Hopefully I don't pose myself. Okay. And what is stconfigure? Slide 1.2. Okay. It's been a while since I've looked at that. Let's look over here. Oh, interesting. I'm on my first slide and the second subslide. Oh. It's telling me some sort of piece of information there, isn't it? Okay. Let's open another window. And let's go to slide 3 on this one. Okay, so window 2, I'm in the same file. We're going to move this thing out of the way for now. Okay. So window 2 is on slide 3. See that? Window 1 is on slide 2.2. Interesting, right? Okay. So part of what's going on there is that configuration. I need to send a different set of instructions based on the module, which is the layout, maybe the table, but also for me, the window that I'm in. This was a big deal for me. I like to have multiple windows. And when you use things like global variables to store context, you have a problem the moment you open that second window up. It's also the reason Nick has different scripts for all these different modules, because contacts, it is, accounts need to know where it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, the next step that I have found is some sort of initialization process. Okay, and let's look at slide tab configuration for a moment in a little bit of greater detail. Okay, oh, this got reversed. There it is. So let's take our custom function, put it over here, and I think we're actually going to get the same result if I think about it. So we still get that same result, so we're going to actually skip that for a moment. But let's go see kind of what's going on. Okay, so that calls this one. And if we look here, we get something called slide tab active. Okay. And then if we scroll on down, it's going to call this. And then it's going to say, hey, is st slide JSON empty? If it is, you need to perform this script. Okay. What is stjson? Let's go take a look. And Miles, at any point, if you have to interrupt me for questions, that's fine. But I'm sure people are kind of scratching their heads right now.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's just taking it in.
There we go, slide JSON. Okay. So now we've got a little bit better information. Now, again, today, if you're the consumer of add-ons, don't even worry about all this. But if you are someone who definitely wants to create these, then you can dive in a little bit more here. This is a JSON array. And even if you're not a JSON expert, you might be able to look at this and derive certain things. Okay, so we've got two objects going on here with details inside of those objects. We have a panel slide that tells us that our active slide is 2.2 and that we're on slide 2. Of the sub-slides that exist, we have slide 3 and slide 2. Okay, it's a little bit confusing. I'm going to monitor that for a moment. I'm going to jump over here. So if you notice on this slide, we are on 2.2. That's this slide right here. We're going to jump over here. We're going to take a look at this, and it's changed on us. We're now in active slide 3 of 3. And as I change these, let's go to 1. Let's go to 1.3. Okay, I'm on 1.3. I'm on slide 1, and it's starting to store context-specific information. Okay. And what's happening there is on the back end, we have this initialization taking place. This is absolutely, I don't know why those keep switching. This is absolutely essential to this whole process. Assuming I can find it again. Oh, that's right, it's the script, I'm sorry. I say it's actually been months since I built this. So here's our initialization. Now, for my basic add-ons, I don't actually necessarily need one of these two steps. Sometimes they are just really, really easy, like the accordion or the beautiful menus. But configuration more or less passes some sort of info that's context specific. Again, it's going to be different for contacts and accounts and invoices. And initialization receives that set of instructions to do something. And what is initialization doing? Well, this part looks probably really confusing. So I'm going to give you guys a tip. It's something I've been using over the last year that's really helpful. But what I want to focus on here is that it's doing this right here. Okay. st set JSON. I'm going to show you kind of what that means. And then it does set variable. These two things are the magic behind virtually all of my add-ons. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open this real quick. And this is just a cookie. We're not, again, I don't want to decipher all this stuff, everybody. Frankly, I was going through it last night. I'm like, oh, this is a lot. But when I write really complicated code, first of all, if anyone's ever gone through my calculations and my let statements, I tend to do one thing per line. One thing per line. Try to keep it really simple. And I always have result equals and then result is the final thing so that I can actually take any variable in here at any time and look at what the result is if I'm troubleshooting, which is useful. Obviously, there's nothing. The other thing that I've started to add to mine is either a formatting or debug step where I can actually go up here when this is in the data viewer and I can change a parameter and get a different output. Now, it looks like this one's actually already formatting for me, which is really nice. But a lot of times the JSON array you get isn't formatted. In fact, that's probably a bug there because it should only be formatting if it's turned on. We're going to go ahead and cancel out of that. Okay, and let's go look at those two custom functions to get an idea of kind of what's going on. So the first one that I said that we would come back to is this set JSON. And this one's a doozy, if I remember correctly. Oh, actually, it doesn't look too well. Let's see if we even got to it. There we go. I was like, this one should be a lot going on. I'm not going to break this down other than to tell you this. A lot of my configure steps are JSON arrays, and my JSON arrays are very similar to Nick's list parameters, where there's parameter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Though I still use list like Nick does, I have to abandon it the moment my parameters become too complicated. specifically when you have things like lists inside of them, or one parameter needs to be like almost a child to another. JSON is a great structure for this. And so when I have complicated parameters, I pass a JSON array. For my complicated add-ons, initialize takes the complicated JSON and creates new JSON. That's what this is doing right here. If you look at it, you'll notice that we have several JSON set elements, JSON set elements. And let's just stick to the 2 levels. That's a really good question I'll get back to. Okay. The other thing in that initialize you saw is, so it's creating a JSON array, and then it's also doing this thing called set variable. So set variable is actually something people have been doing. Well, it's not necessarily called this. I've been doing in the FileMaker community for a while, and Calvin was really nice to give me one of his scripts that I could repurpose. So in my initial add-ons, it required the user to make a global variable per module, and I had a dynamic set field by name that allowed all the context to get created and set. In fact, if anyone downloaded or used virtual tabs, it worked, and it still works that way, before I realized that there's a better way where you don't need to add things. And what I do is I set a variable dynamically. And the logic here is we make a global variable, we take the layout name. My thinking being that your solution should never have 2 layouts with the same name. If you do, then you're going to have problems probably beyond just this. Then we give it this name panel underscore, and something called window name. Okay. And so now we're starting to break into the third part of kind of my steps, which is the JSON part, which is that JSON is really helpful in being a complicated data structure that can allow us in our virtual place to almost create tables and information of what's going on outside of what's in the file. Because again, our add-on, it needs to operate separate of the file. Okay. So I'm going to close this for a moment, and I'm going to come back to our windows here, and I'm going to go ahead and open the data viewer, and I'm going to go to current. And now we can see that a little bit more is going on. I've got window 1 over here, and I've got window 2, and you might notice that I've got 2 variables, $, like our variable is, demo, the name of the layout, underscore, panel, which is just a word that I chose, underscore, the number of the window. That's how this is able to work on multiple windows. If you're not able to create repetitions in the variable, which is definitely something that's beyond the average FileMaker user, I would say, most people can get into repetitions, then we can keep track of this. We have arrays of arrays, basically. And let's look at what demo panel says. Come over here. I'm going to do $, underscore, I think it was actually just demo, underscore, panel, underscore. And there is some JSON, okay? And then I can do my 2, and I can get different JSON. Now let's see how this compares to, and if I'm not mistaken, let's see if these equal each other. Well, they don't. I think they're supposed to, though. So that might just be an error. Let's take a look at these. The slide tab JSON. I might also have the wrong window. I do the wrong window in context. There we go. Okay. So what does that mean? People are probably looking at this going, I don't really understand. So they equal each other. So what? So slide tab JSON does something really special for us. It tells us what the JSON is, what the variable is for the given layout. So we have these 2 variables that tell us the information that we need to know. And again, you don't need to be a JSON expert. Just this basically tells you what slide you're on, and this tells you the parent slide. And this is useful information about what sub-slides the user has been to. So that if you go back to one of the sub-slides, you end up on the same one. In fact, I don't know if I showed this, but it is kind of cool. If I go to slide 1, I'm on slide 3, and I go over here to 3, and I come back to 1, it puts me on the 3rd one, because that's where I last was. If I come over here and I'm on 2, and I go to 3, and I come back, it puts me on the last one. So that's something that's rather important, and that's what this bottom section is doing. but how does this window know to use that variable and this window knows to use that variable? Let's go back to our custom functions. And we have our slide tab JSON, but we've got another thing in here that's important. If I can find it. Not set variable. There we go. So we got another custom function. And this one right here knows the same logic from the set variable. So set tab slide variable name can use the same logic of what encoded the variable name to decipher the variable name. And then over here, there we go. Then we evaluate the JSON. So back when I did a global variable, we had to get the contents of the field name, but now we can just evaluate what it is. So that's the third area of my kind of method to madness, if you will, which is dynamic variable naming. And I'm going to I see some questions, so I'm going to jump over to those in just a moment. And the other part that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but for me was really important, was figuring out this whole window numbering. And it's still possible that this custom function is not perfect. But if you look at when you open Windows, they have a fairly consistent pattern. So I've got demo was window 1, demo 2 is window 2, demo is window 3, and you can see that those variables are able to follow that pattern. And so each time you go to a layout, each time you change the mode, it calls configure to figure out some information. It calls the initialize, and initialize then creates a variable based on the context that you are in and stores it in the correct repetition or window number. And then the other custom functions, they know what this variable name is based on the window that they're already in, and they use a custom function to get their same information. If I were a viewer watching today and I listened to what I just said, I think smoke would be coming out my ears and it'd be very confusing. And that's why I don't necessarily want to 100% try to dive into how these work. But if you can get this idea that you should have some sort of configuration step of sending the instructions per context, have something that potentially initializes that information. If you're comfortable enough, use some JSON to store the different languages you have. And then if you can dynamically create variable names, then for the people on the other end, they don't need to create any fields. It can all be done in that. And one of my big suggestions is managing all of your code in custom functions. And what I've decided to do is put the prefix of my add-on in the front so I can easily find these. Window number doesn't have a prefix because guess what? I use the same one in every add-on that I'm using because this is a cycle that I'm now repeating over and over again. The set variable, it has to be specific to the add-on, because if all the add-ons set variables just based on the window name, they're going to run into each other. So you have to add something special to them. I'm going to pause for a moment. I see smoke coming out of people's ears, and I do want to answer. I know there was at least one really good question. Yeah, I think that's about right. So when building an add-on, if the calculation is used more than one time, you build a custom function just to make things cleaner. Yeah, Cameron, that's exactly what I do. Is it required or necessary? No. And that's why I really want to emphasize the stuff that I'm showing you today isn't like the rules. But what happened for me, Cameron, there was one thing specific, and it's almost kind of silly or dumb. But when you create a JSON array and you need to get information out of that JSON, one for a moment so that people can be familiar with what I'm saying. I'm also concerned that this is formatted. It shouldn't be. That means I left something on for all of you guys. But if I wanted to get the active slide, then I need to do a JSON get element, and I have to spell that word, and I have to spell it correctly. And this might seem kind of dumb, but over time, the words that I used in my JSON, I wanted to change them. I didn't like what I originally used. And that meant that in every spot that I had a calculation, like a parameter or a hide function or a conditional formatting, I had to go and change the word of get JSON element, and this was annoying. So instead, I'm like, what's the harm in having a simple custom function that just says, all I do, my only job as a custom function is to get this value out of the array. And then if I ever change the word, I just go find that and I change it. In fact, let's go back to the custom functions for a second. And if we go over here to active, then you'll notice somewhere in here, I mean, it's not this one. Oh, come on, where are you? Here we go. So in my let statement, I always write my let statements the same too. I have an input section. These are the things that kind of come into them. And then down here, I added keywords. So I know that my JSON's all going to get formatted the same way, and here are my keys. And so if I ever want to change panel or slide or sub, then I have centralized locations to go change it, not 15 different hide calculations I have to go find. So that was one of the reasons that I changed that. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, Cameron. By all means, let me know if you've got something easier. It makes it easier for me to manage. Does it mean that the slide panel add-on is restricted to 2 levels? This is a really good question. Depends how good of a programmer you are. The answer is right now, out of the box, yes. It's restricted to 2 levels. So you've got your primary panel here, and you've got your sub panels right here. So this thing's still grouped. Oh, whoops. There we go. Lots of grouped objects. So yeah, so you've got your main panel here, which you don't have to have only 3 panels. You can add as many panels as you want to, and every single one of those panels can have a sub panel. You just have to follow the logic. But I think what, and I'm going to totally butcher that name, Agassifi. Obviously, I said that wrong. What if you wanted to add a panel inside of here? Or what if you wanted to put this thing inside of a panel? Or what if you wanted to have 2 on the layout next to each other? It doesn't work right now. I've created the structure in such a way that I think that this problem is solvable. And it's based on this, basically. So Nick does his whole slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. I love this. One of his videos, he said, everyone's always using these really unique names. Just have a standardized method. Then you know that you can get 1, and you can more consistently match slide 1 with button 2. So this made sense to me then that we'll go down here and we'll make 1 dot. Let's go to 1.1. We'll do 1.1. And the nice thing about JSON, and again, I know most people aren't necessarily familiar with this, is JSON uses key index pairing, and you can infinitely go down or up, if you will, with the indexes. So the idea here is if I go to slide 1, it uses the key 1 to identify whether or not in the JSON it has children in there and adds a 1 to the index. And so you can follow this same logic to have these infinitely go down or infinitely go up. But as of right now, it wouldn't just work. You'd have to go into the code and actually change it. And so I don't think that most people are going to be interested in doing that. But if you want to, take a look at set.json, this, and then also take a look at initialize. And those are going to be the main areas that you change. And then follow a logic that is consistent. But again, I'm not expecting people to do that. And so are there limitations? Absolutely. 99% of the time, this fills the need for me. And when it doesn't, I'll probably come back to it one day and try to update it. If I was going to guess, I'm thinking that 5.5, we use this version quite a while. I think Ed's replied to something from Mrs. Lobster. Do you clear the variable when the window closes? That's another good question, Cameron. And I want to say that I do, because I'm really particular about it. But let's see on live television if that other variable cleared. It didn't. So I'd have to take a look. Like I said, it's been months that I've worked on these. I guess there's not a script trigger on layout close, though. So I'd have to think about when it's supposed to. You know what it is? I think when you leave the layout, it would. But this file doesn't have multiple layouts. So let's just see really quickly. No, the leaving it won't do it. On layout exit. Yeah, so as of right now, no, it doesn't. That's a really good one, Cameron. And for those of you who maybe aren't picking what Cameron's asking, is every time I birth new windows out of here, I'm creating global variables, and this is all taking up RAM. So it's really a good idea to clear these out. Obviously, this one isn't right now. Now, if I close the file and reopen it, it would. So on most of mine, I do that. This one clearly doesn't have a trigger that would cause that. And I killed Ed. Ed's head blew up. We got smoke. Perfect. And look at that, just in enough time to totally call it done now. So a couple things. Again, I do believe that this would probably be over a lot of people's heads, but I really want people, even at the basic level, to get an idea of this whole, okay, I'm in these different contexts. How do I say where I am? And maybe that's all you need for yours. But on the other end of it, it might have to do some sort of processing. So someone's throwing a ball and someone has to catch it, okay? The configuration is the tossing of the note. The initializing is receiving the note and then deciphering something with it. For me, the magic bullet is this idea of dynamically naming variables based on something that I know is unique, which for me is the layout name, some random word, and then I put the window number to basically create a repetition to the variable. And I don't expect regular users to know what that means. 3 years ago, if I was talking to me, I wouldn't understand what I just said there. Okay. But you can also take my add-ons and borrow a number of these things to see if you can use them. Now I've been talking to, and then the other one too, there's just a cookie, is in your let statements. If you write them, add a toggle at the top to format your JSON or give you different debugging steps. This is really useful for add-ons and anything else. I do really like the idea of replacing all of the different calculations that take place with a custom function. The other thing is recognizing how the calculation engine is so important. So if you go into this and you go to this script trigger, this is just a custom function, but you don't realize that because it calls a custom function, you now have access to the calculation engine. The calculation engine can create variables, so you can do a bunch of logic and store the information into a variable just by calling a custom function. So every place that there is a calculation, you suddenly have magical tools to do things. Because again, we need to utilize the calculation engine as add-on creators so that our end users don't have as many steps on their plate. And that is hard. Again, not everyone's going to be a creator, at least initially. Okay. Another thing that is really interesting is I have met with some other engineers who are doing different things altogether with the add-ons. And one of the things I haven't really talked much about, but it is interesting, and I'll throw it out there for the other creators, is the idea of versioning. And I've talked with Richard a lot about this, and you guys have heard us bringing it up in the different streams. But like, what happens when you change an add-on? Where is this add-on stored? Like, if I install an add-on into this computer, but then get on another computer, I can't actually drag it on. And for me, there has to be a meticulous control over the add-on because mine are all object-oriented, at least at the moment. So if I go change slide tabs because I want this to be blue in all of them, I just need to be conscientious of that, okay? And that's useful for me, and that's why moving forward, I'm actually going to duplicate my add-ons per client because I really want to have them styled before I install them, and the flexibility to update the styling because this drag and drop feature is really nice. Breaking down the add-on into the tools Claris has given us is really useful. So one of them is that you can install code into your file. On Wednesday, we learned that maybe all you want is that installation to get custom functions and scripts. You don't even need the drag and drop. The drag and drop allows you to drop layout objects on screen, which for things like slide tabs and the beautiful menus and the accordion is really useful. The drag and drop also lets you create relationships at some level that can be useful to you. But the other one that I've not really talked to you all about is how you can right click on these and uninstall an add-on. When you do this, it asks you, do you want to permanently delete all of the stuff that came over with the add-on, okay? And so you can uninstall the add-on and leave all the objects, leave all the code, or you can remove it. And so another engineer has an idea that he's going to have buttons on screen that call a script by name that is in his add-on, okay? And as he versions his add-ons, the goal is he'll actually come and uninstall them and reinstall them. And kind of like I have the configuration, he has this interface, which is this script is always going to look for the same name. So it doesn't necessarily remove his button. And every time he uninstalls and reinstalls his add-on, he can still get to it. And so similar to Calvin's crop image, maybe Jake's one that he'll release with the developer tools, these self-contained things that are totally separate from the file, suddenly you have some flexibility if you want to go in and change your version, go to your target files and just nuke them out and reinstall them. So it's just another tool that's available to you. So again, today is definitely probably over people's heads. Megan, I'm not expecting you necessarily to follow it, but for maybe Cameron or Jake or Kyle that are watching this, I hope there's a couple things in here that would be helpful. And I just want you guys to see when you open up any of my add-ons, regardless of which ones they are, look at the custom function library, first of all, to see what's going on. Take a look at that set variable, and you'll notice that the set variable is going to have a piece of code right here. And then there's going to be something somewhere that says, variable name. And this one, it's the slide variable name. In virtual portals, it's something else, virtual portal. And this thing is going to say, hey, all the stuff you want is here. And then there's going to be a thing called JSON that gets that. Okay, so just to kind of loop back through that, we set a variable name, or we make a variable, but the name is really, really important. And then over here, we've got some data that actually goes into it. So we create this variable name. Over here, we know the variable name. Okay, and then because we know the variable name with the window number, which is basically the repetition of the variable, we can now get the data out of it. Evaluate JSON. And what's so cool about this is, so let's do our slide JSON one more time. Okay. So there is our slide JSON. I've got it in here twice. And let's see if I can make this fit on screen enough to kind of see what's going on here. I'm going to go to browse. So right now, slide JSON knows that we are on slide 2 of 2. Open a new window and go to 1.3, and slide JSON knows that we're on 1.3. And the reason all of that is happening is we dynamically name a variable, but we know what the logic is behind it, so we can get the name of the variable. If we can get the name of the variable, we can evaluate the variable, and if we can evaluate the variable, we can pass context from module to module and window to window. I hope that makes sense to some of them out there. So this was definitely the deeper dive today. It's been a little while since I've jumped into slide tabs. So I'll be honest, going through this last night, this is definitely one of those things where I stayed up till 3 in the morning many, many, many nights in a row to make it work. Got it to work for myself. And it's definitely something that I even don't want to jump into a whole lot over and over again to try to decipher what's going on. I mostly wanted to get a tool for myself that worked reliably, that I could use. And yes, eventually I would love to have more than 2 layers. But I mean, raise your hand if you've got slide tabs that are frequently going more than 2 layers deep. Generally, it's the 1, and then the 2 is nice. So I've probably just about lost everyone there. But if anyone has any questions for any of the last 3 days, by all means, shoot them out there. Miles, I'm assuming YouTube's pretty quiet?
Yeah, YouTube and Twitch are crickets.
Perfect. The last thing then, I'll kind of switch gears from that a little bit. Cameron followed me, I think. As Richard was kind of describing, definitely a little pressure, stress trying to get the product out the door. The authorized file is a little issue that I found. Looking at here, I'm kind of concerned about 2 little things, but I've been using this and I've had no problems, so maybe there's not actually an issue there. But if you guys do kind of run into some issues with the Wolfpack itself, please do send an email to support@rcconsulting.com with Wolfpack in the description, in the subject, so that when I'm able to, I do want to get to those. Similarly, if you find bugs in the add-ons, let me know. I'm aware of some bugs, especially in the virtual products. I've fixed them, but I haven't been able to actually go and change the source files or the masters. So at some point I will do that. But the nice thing is with this whole export import, there's going to be a real easy way, whether or not we send you a new Wolfpack or not, to actually update the packages that are in there. Miles and I were actually testing that earlier, and I'm really excited to see the add-ons that people configure using the adding their own help sections and sharing them with us. Maybe you should add currently known to the Wolfpacks. Right now, I wouldn't say that there's any currently known bugs. It's all working. I don't. I think I fixed everything. But the authorized one is things that I think people are going to run into. And again, just if you missed the beginning of today, what I'm referring to is when you go to File Manage Security, In FileMaker 18 and 19 files, this box is automatically checked over here in File Access. And so if you make your own add-on, this is only for creators. If you make your own add-on and you drop the package in there, either that needs to be unchecked or you have to authorize the Wolfpack. The reason for this is, if I jump back to Wolfpack for a moment, when this installer runs, what it's doing is it's looping through all of these records that have the checkbox next to them. And if we go into customize here, so this is kind of interesting. We didn't talk about this much yesterday, but there's lots of FileMaker files stacked on top of FileMaker files. We're in a FileMaker file, and that's a FileMaker file in a container. And when I export these, I'm exporting a FileMaker file that has FileMaker files in them. But when it goes to install the add-on, which is this package right here, what it does is it exports that FileMaker file and it opens it. And this new security feature in Manage File Security won't allow another FileMaker file to open it unless it's been authorized. So either you have to authorize Wolfpack or you have to turn that off. Now, in order to help prevent people from running into issues, what I've done is if you go in here to create and you drag one on here, it's going to warn, oh, this file is locked because I'm using it. Let's use one maybe that's not locked. So if I drop this in here, it's going to say, hey, have you authorized your file to open by Wolfpack? Not sure what this means. Click help. If you click help, it'll take you to Claris's website that I think for most people is just going to be confusing. So we do want to improve this and maybe add a video later. If you've already authorized it, you can click this. So I've got something in there to help people to kind of prevent that. And yes, if I find any bugs, we will post those. For each add-on. Yeah, I followed you on that too, Cameron. Any other questions? We're past landing time. I think we're on the tarmac right now waiting to onboard the plane. So I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, everyone can check out fmwolfpack.com. And I mean, we got the little video on there. You can download it. So, yeah, Kristian shared it there. I think everyone will dive into it, and then we'll maybe get some questions later.
And if you got packs that you make, share them here in Discord. Send them to us. This is very much community and collaborative. I'm trying to get the the ball rolling, but I'm not the best engineer developer by any means out there. I'm sure people are going to come up with some really cool ideas.
Yeah, this is really neat, Kristian. I think it's gonna kickstart a lot of cool things. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10, 9:25. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.